A third and final video on Chapter 6 of the Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam. This will probably be a short one. I don't know that I have a great deal to say about this passage, but it's interesting and it's eloquent, and it's the end, it's the final paragraph of Chapter 6. Humanity needs three things today: a spiritual interpretation of the universe, spiritual emancipation of the individual, and basic principles of a universal import directing the evolution of human society on a spiritual basis. Three things the world needs today: spiritual interpretation of the universe, spiritual emancipation of the individual, and basic principles of a universal import directing the evolution of human society on a spiritual basis. I will make this comment on that sentence. I think you could probably safely say that although the safe and straightforward and simple way of interpreting this book, let's say outlining this book, would be to take what he says at the end of chapter 1 and use it to outline the rest of the book. The pragmatic test comes up in chapter 5, the philosophical test happens in chapter 1, and see what you can do about any chapters in between, etc., etc. Although that is the case, this is an interesting way of outlining the book. Humanity needs three things today: a spiritual interpretation of the universe. Well, that was, I think, the point of chapter 2. Spiritual emancipation of the individual. I think that was the point of chapter 4. And basic principles of a universal import directing the evolution of human society on a spiritual basis. That was chapters 5 and 6. Actually, I think the spiritual interpretation of the universe probably includes chapters 2 and 3. So, chapter 1, an introduction. Chapter 2 and chapter 3, a spiritual interpretation of the universe. Chapter 4, spiritual emancipation of the individual. And then chapters 5 and 6, basic principles of universal relevance directing development of society on a spiritual basis. That's an outline for you of most of the book. We haven't gotten to chapter 7 yet. Modern Europe has no doubt built idealistic systems on these lines, but experience shows that truth revealed through pure reason is incapable of bringing that fire of living conviction which personal revelation alone can bring. This is the reason why pure thought has so little influenced men, while religion has always elevated individuals and transformed whole societies. So modern Europe has done some stuff right. Modern Europe has tried to do this stuff: spiritual interpretation of the universe, emancipation of the individual, spiritual. Basic principles of universal relevance directing the development of society on a spiritual basis. Modern Europe tried to do this. Kant and Hegel tried to do this. They built idealistic systems on these lines, but experience shows whatever truth they understood through reason alone was not sufficient to get the job done. Revelation is necessary. This is why pure thought has done much less good than religion. The idealism of Europe never became a living factor in her life, and the result is a perverted ego seeking itself through mutually intolerant democracies whose sole function is to exploit the poor in the interest of the rich. Believe me, Europe today is the greatest hindrance in the way of man's ethical advancement. I love how he'll criticize and compliment something almost in the same breath. So there's a compliment to modern European civilization and modern European thought, and then a polite critique. Well, it wasn't enough to get the job done, although it certainly did some good things, revealed some truths, blah, blah, blah. And then Europe is the greatest hindrance in the way of man's ethical advancement. Right now, Europe's the biggest problem. The Muslim, on the other hand, is in possession of these ultimate ideas on the basis of a revelation which, speaking from the inmost depths of life, internalizes its own apparent externality. So, the ideas we need, which to some extent modern European thought was able to discover through reason, those ideas are perfectly captured and expressed and taught and conveyed in Islam, he says. Let's go to the final sentence. Let the Muslim of today appreciate his position, reconstruct his social life in the light of ultimate principles, and evolve out of the hitherto partially revealed purpose of Islam, its spiritual democracy, which is the ultimate aim of Islam. I think I'll just stop there. Either I don't have anything to say, or I don't know much of what I should say about that final sentence. I guess I'll read it again and say very little other than that. The ultimate aim of Islam is spiritual democracy. I'll say that. And then I hope that the words speak for themselves, or that if not, you are able to interpret them on your own. Let the Muslim of today appreciate his position, reconstruct his social life in the light of ultimate principles, and evolve out of the hitherto partially revealed purpose of Islam, that spiritual democracy, which is the ultimate aim of Islam. Well, maybe I can make one further comment on this final sentence of chapter 6. Reconstructing social life in the light of ultimate principles means, in part, what he was talking about earlier in chapter 6. Ijtihad, not jihad, ijtihad, I-G-T-I-H-A-D, ijtihad, as a principle of movement in the structure of Islam that involves eternal principles but also change. And this as a principle for Islamic law. All of this, and even in broader context, the principle that religious thought in Islam must be reconstructed with attention to its own spiritual heritage, which has scarcely been appreciated, but also with attention to modern thought, modern Enlightenment thought, modern European thought that has discovered through reason and science some of these principles all on its own. Reconstruct religious thought in light of all of this. So there you go. I hope that helps with the final sentence. And we have one chapter left in this book. See you then, I suppose. Thanks for watching.